All his life, he was told to obey, to smile, to forgive, to never fight back. But obedience only broke him. When the pain became too heavy, Ji-hoon escaped into his favorite game, and the game answered. Now trapped inside the world he once used to hide from, he's no longer a defender. He's the king of monsters, and this time, it's the world's turn to break. Can a broken soul rebuild the world by destroying it first? Let's find out. Night Defense, a hellish dream game. The one who defends 100 waves will receive a reward, and the first one to complete the game will receive a reward of 1 billion won. Ji-hoon looked at the promotional poster and was very interested in the reward. If he had this money, he would be able to escape. His father is the popularly elected and incorruptible legislator Kim Ui-soo, who is currently running for his third term. And being the son of such a public figure, he himself found himself in the spotlight. He is the best student in school. He has already won first place several times. MC saw this article just while he was at school, and a girl came up to him and hugged him, saying how cool he was. She switched to a whisper and said she wanted to talk to him about something. Can they step outside for a minute? After that, the girls took him away, and his classmates began to discuss it. One of them said he was jealous of him. They are the best students, the daughters of association members. It's easy to talk to someone like him. After that, the girls took him to an alley where their friends were waiting for them. She looked at Ji-hoon with an innocent expression and asked why he didn't want to lend her money. He told her that he had already lent her 300,000 won last week. He simply could not give her more. The guy put his hand on his shoulder and asked if he should report him. He could tell them that he created that illegal website. Ji-hoon excitedly exclaimed that he didn't say he was going to use it illegally, and the guy asked, so what? He was an accomplice. The girl sighed heavily and said that she didn't even know what to do, so it would be easier for them to go and tell everyone about it. Who would lose from this? The MC became very nervous. He immediately remembered his father, and the girl put her hand on his shoulder with a smile, asking, he can handle it, right? She was counting on him. The school day ended, and when he came home, he froze in front of his father's office, but he still couldn't bring himself to go inside. When he was almost there, he turned around abruptly, and his father's voice came from the side, asking why he was standing there. Did he want to tell him something? Ji-hoon was scared. He looked up at him, and he reminded him that the elections were just around the corner. If he couldn't help him, then at least he shouldn't do anything that would dishonor his name. These words made him even more nervous, and his father asked why he was silent. He pulled himself together and calmed down, and with a smile told him not to worry. He wouldn't let him down. His father said that he wondered if there was anything left in him that he could be disappointed in. He should just live the way he told him. That's all. After this difficult conversation, MC ran into the room and caught his breath. He clenched his teeth and thought, what should he do? Why is he doing this to him? His cat, Ruru, licked his palm, which scared him greatly, but it ignored it and meowed. He immediately calmed down and asked with a smile, was she worried about him? The cat jumped on him and he asked her to stop. It tickled him. He picked her up and said that she was a little rascal. Everyone at school and at home is against him, but she is still with him. He glanced at the promotional post for the game and thought that he had finally passed the 99th wave. He just had to endure one more. But unfortunately, he failed to pass the last wave. He lost. After that, he restarted the game hundreds of times and tried everything he could. But the last wave was simply impossible to pass. It turned out that he was not the only one with this problem. Famous streamers of this game also could not pass the finale and got angry and sweared about it. A year has already passed since the release of the game. Many have reached wave 99, but no one has been able to pass the last one. But he cannot give up. The only way for him and Ruru to escape this hellish life is this game. His last hope is the item from the wave 99 boss, Drake's heart. It is fully upgraded. An item with better stats simply doesn't exist. But even with it, he couldn't pass the last wave. He no longer knew what to do. As soon as he put his phone down on the table, Ruru stepped on the screen, and he wanted to move her, but when he saw what she had stepped on, his eyes widened in fear. The cat pressed the item disassembly button, and he looked at the screen with a silent scream. All his efforts were useless. Drake's heart turned into 1,000 upgrade fragments. He grabbed his head and thought that now all he could do was go back to the beginning. But if he started again, would anything change? In addition to the upgrade fragments, he received the Dragon Soul, and this surprised him. After all, when you disassemble an item, you usually only get fragments. Suddenly, his heart started beating faster. He began to guess what it was and used it. That's how he got away to pass the 100th wave, and he immediately started playing. Days passed, at school, at home, even on the street, he constantly played the game. One evening, he passed wave 99, disassembled the heart into fragments, and again received the Dragon Soul. He got nervous and thought that so far everything was going well, and then began passing the 100th wave. He clicked on his character and began to pray for success. The monsters were quickly defeated. This time he was sure that he would pass this wave, and he did it. Realizing that he won, he was very happy and shouted loudly that he did it. He excitedly called his cat, and at that moment his father entered the room, asking what he did. The atmosphere immediately became tense. Ji-hoon quickly put the phone down on the table, face down, and his father said that his friends called him. They dared to demand money from him for his stupid mistake. He looked at the club he brought with him and said nervously that he didn't know they used it like that. His father reminded him that he had told him not to do anything that would dishonor his honor. Realizing that he was about to hit him, he became very scared and tearfully asked him for forgiveness and promised that it would never happen again. But his father didn't listen to him. He swung and Ji-hoon screamed loudly in fear, and then there was a crack. The club hit his phone, breaking the screen, and at that moment he realized that he was weak. He couldn't fight back. His father said that he had never done anything for him, and at that moment Ji-hoon noticed that the cat was nowhere to be found. He asked him where Ruru was, and he told him that he didn't need her anymore. Hearing this, he clenched his teeth in rage, and his father asked what kind of expression that was, just guessing what he could have done to her. He looked at him with hatred and asked, "Where is she?" He responded by telling him not to worry. She is already in the grave with his mother. Ji-hoon was shocked by what he heard. He was horrified, and his psychopathic father said with a smile that he just needs to live by his rules. Then he will have wealth, fame, everything he wants. So let him not disappoint him anymore. He believes in him. These words sounded like thunder. Ji-hoon hated him so much, he couldn't stand it anymore. Even though the phone was broken, it still worked, and he received a congratulations. He was the first to complete the night defense game. He looked up at the ceiling and burst into tears, saying that it was too late, she was gone, so there was no reason to run. No reason to stay here. A message came from his phone inviting him to the game world, and lightning crept through the window into his room and struck him. A second later, lightning struck the kingdom's palace, and Ji-hoon appeared in the audience hall. The knights were impressed by this sight and convinced that he was their savior, after which the locals began calling him the legendary knight. They were overjoyed at his arrival, while he, meanwhile, tried to grasp reality. Everything was so strange. His tears weren't flowing, and his feelings seemed to be reset. The king cleared his throat, drawing attention to himself, and asked, "Is he the legendary knight who will save the kingdom?" MC glanced at him, immediately recognizing the face. He had seen a similar scene in the game. The king said that he was the ruler of the kingdom of Georgia, Bayless, Georgia III. The kingdom was currently in crisis. Monsters were advancing from all sides, and they were having a hard time holding them back. At that moment, his servant ran into the audience hall and informed him that they were in trouble. Ji-hoon watched all this with a devastated expression, realizing that the situation in the kingdom and this event were all accurate and just like in the game's intro. The king listened to his servant and turned to the knight, saying that the matter was urgent, so he would give the order immediately. Let him become the knight's commander and protect the kingdom. A system window with a faction selection immediately appeared in front of MC. Did he want to accept the king's offer? He remained silent and slowly rose, saying that he didn't know if he was dreaming, but he would say it once, so let them listen carefully. Now 1 billion won was worthless to him. The kingdom's residents gathered in the palace immediately began whispering among themselves, not understanding what he was talking about. Someone even said that for a legendary knight, he seemed somehow weak. The king said that he doesn't know what 1 billion won is, but if he becomes the knight commander and protects humanity from monsters, then whatever he wishes for, he will fulfill it, whatever it is. Ji-hoon's eyes widened at his words. Something was wrong. The king told him not to worry, to just follow his orders. Then he would have everything he desired, both riches and glory. He immediately remembered his father and felt sick, and the king's last phrase about believing in him finished him off. He shouted loudly that he would not do this, surprising the king and everyone around him. Wherever he went, because he was the son of a deputy, everyone around tried to use him. Even here, they wanted him to become a slave knight. Everyone present began to get nervous, and he said that he did not need riches and glory. With a stony expression, he extended a finger to the system window and told them all to go to hell. He rejected the king's offer. Everyone was shocked by the legendary knight's words, and the system window immediately turned red. Sometime later, monsters attacked the kingdom. The player was unable to influence this, and the end came. Or was that just his thinking? The system said he had rejected the human faction, and therefore he was granted the right to choose a new one. A hidden path was opened to him, and the monster faction was unlocked. Let him press the button to begin. MC was surprised about a hidden path and a monster faction, in a game about defending only. So, now he was on the attacking side. The king said that one must answer for one's choice, after which he addressed his subjects and declared that he was no longer a legendary knight, but an enemy who humiliated him and put the life of the country and its people at risk. He turned to the knights of the kingdom and ordered them to cut off his head immediately. Immediately after these words, they pounced on him with a roar. Ji-hoon, with a gloomy expression on his face, lowered his head and thought that he had endured for too long. The knights surrounded him, almost decapitating him. But he was not going to give in, because he had held on all this time. A bright flash instantly blinded everyone, and the king leaned forward in surprise to get a better look. A monster's silhouette emerged from a bright flash, and the system informed MC that he had chosen a faction. He had surpassed human capabilities. Humans would be hostile towards him, while monsters were showing interest in him. He now understood the language of monsters. Their goal was to destroy the human faction. A red beam of light shot into the sky, and the monsters approaching the city gates roared. Now it was Ji-hoon's turn to attack. There were 10 minutes left until the first wave. As a reward for achieving the goal, he would be able to take one of the local items and return to the real world. He remembered the day his mother brought home a kitten and said that the girl was so cute, she couldn't resist taking her with her. What if her son became friends with her? He thought that if that was really the reward, he would be able to return to that time. The dark energy calmed down, and the knights took a few cautious steps back and asked what that explosion was. An incredibly ominous energy could be felt. The king, meanwhile, nervously thought that it was definitely the outline of a monster. Could this even be called a monster? An energy he'd never felt before emanated from that person. MC looked around and thought that there was no faction selection in the game, so everything must have changed. A window with a description of the main quest appeared in front of him. He needed to break through the soldiers' defenses and attack the people. As a reward, he would receive a box with a random item. He immediately noticed that the quest details had changed, but events were unfolding as in the game. And now a summon ticket for a random S-rank knight should appear, but his expectations were not met. Since he was currently playing as monsters, he was given the egg of a random S-rank monster. He used the egg and it exploded, scattering shells everywhere, and then someone's wings appeared in a cloud of smoke. Seeing the summoned beast, the knights became nervous, and MC thought he knew the name of this monster. And they were giving him this right from the very beginning? The strongest dragon that appears as a boss on Wave 99. The cold-blooded dragon Rejection. But if this dragon were summoned in the center of the kingdom, the human faction would be destroyed in an instant. But, contrary to his expectations, Rejection appeared small, which seemed logical since it had just hatched from an egg. His face twisted in surprise, and he wondered if it was level 1. He extended his hand toward the small creature, and it licked his finger, which immediately reminded him of his Ruru. The dragon looked up at him in bewilderment, and the system informed him that it could use the Overlord's Eye, a passive ability that allows it to see the stats of monsters and items. The knights, meanwhile, tried to convince themselves that there was nothing to fear. He had merely summoned a small monster. They rushed to attack, and Ji-hoon looked at them, thinking that whether it was a dream or not, the only thing he could rely on now was Rejection. He used his ability on the small dragon and saw that it possessed the dragon breath skill. He excitedly called out to the summoned creature, and immediately understanding what he needed to do, he began to gather the energy he'd been summoned. Just as the knights were getting very close and were about to kill him, MC ordered him to use his dragon breath, and the gathered energy instantly shot out a powerful beam at the enemies, piercing the palace wall. A huge chunk of the wall fell directly into the city, and the palace itself now had a huge hole. Ji-hoon looked in shock at the result of this small dragon's strike, and a few seconds later, a piercing scream rang out. Everyone present was terrified of this monster's power, and MC grinned and said it was easier than he thought. If he simply captured the palace, they would immediately give him the reward. Knight Defense has countless items. Among them, there's sure to be something that will grant him the ability he needs, so he has no need to rush. There's no reason to turn back right now. After all, he needs to focus on completing the task now. He petted his dragon, then turned to the representative of the human faction and declared that he would destroy his kingdom, because he needed to somehow get his reward. Meanwhile, the characters in the game raised the alarm and rushed to the palace to protect His Majesty, while Ji-hoon turned to his pet and asked him to use the dragon's breath again. The king's servant excitedly ordered the knights to raise their shields to protect His Majesty and ordered them to stand in 2 or 3 rows. They obeyed him, and MC reminded them that the dragon's breath had just broken through the wall. Will shields help them? No matter how many rows they stand in, it's all useless. He pointed his finger at the king and told the dragon that this was his target. Meanwhile, the knight almost reached the audience hall. Despite Ji-hoon's words, the knights stood firm in protecting the king, and MC ordered Rejection to attack them in the same way. He wanted to do this, but he failed. At that very moment, A knight burst into the audience hall and joyfully told his majesty that he was safe. Meanwhile, the king's servant was perplexed by why the monster had stopped, but MC was shocked himself. When knights use abilities, they spend mana, meaning monsters also have this weakness. His dragon breath requires more mana, but if there is not enough mana, it generates dark circles. Jihoon tried using a normal attack, but even that didn't work, and only a small spark flew out of the dragon's mouth, charring the carpet. MC became nervous and thought that everything was too easy. All he could do was wait for the cooldown. The knight approached him and asked, "Is he the scoundrel who dared to attempt on his majesty's life?" Seeing him, he frowned. In the game, knights were divided into ranks: D. Squire, C. Low ranking, B. Mid ranking, A. High ranking, and S. Elite. And this guy is one of the 12 Zodiac elite knights of the S rank, Aries. The king greeted the strongest knight in the kingdom, and he called out to him worriedly, asking if he was okay. MC, meanwhile, realized that things were bad. The king said that a clash was inevitable, so let him eliminate the enemy immediately. Aries obeyed his order and immediately lit his spear with fire, and MC nervously gritted his teeth, thinking that a knight of such a high rank appeared out of nowhere. So what should he do now? Of the 12 knights, Aries is the initial area of effect attacker. He is the best character to start the game with. Aries raised his weapon over his head and told the enemy that he would make him dance until his death, then slammed it on the floor and sent a wall of flames at him. Jihoon could only watch in shock as the flames approached him. A powerful stream of fire pierced the palace walls, escaping outside, but struck the other knights. Watching them suffer in the flames made MC uneasy. This skill, Flame Wall, releases fire in a straight line from the character to the target. He knew he would be the target, and so he somehow managed to dodge at the last moment, and he clearly doesn't care even about his allies. He gritted his teeth in anger, and Aries, swinging his spear, headed towards him, saying that he was dodging like a dirty rat. It would make a beautiful flaming hole right through his heart. Jihoon immediately realized that he was pretending to spare him, but his skill was on cooldown. This meant he had a chance. Rejeldrake tried to use Dragon Breath, but it didn't work, and at that moment, the knight pounced on his master, telling him not to move, otherwise it would hurt him more. He nervously looked up at him and thought that there had to be a way out. He hadn't come all this way for it to end like this. The system reported that he had an unclaimed reward. Did he want it right now? The spear pierced the system window. He had no time to think, so he ordered it to give it to him, after which a chest with a reward appeared right in his hands, and the spear pierced it. The knight jumped back and exclaimed in confusion, "Was that a summoning spell?" Immediately after, the chest opened, a bright light struck MC's eyes, and a huge sword appeared. He looked at it with the eyes of the Overlord and recognized it as a rank S weapon called the Hellblade. It gives 999 magic power, but further upgrades are unavailable. The description says it's a sword of chaos and destruction, bringing hell. He was very surprised that he was able to obtain such a high-ranking weapon from the very first reward chest. He doesn't know who summoned him here, but by giving him such power, they seem to want him to destroy the human faction. As soon as the sword touched the floor, cracks spread around, and Jihoon looked at it in shock, saying that this couldn't be. Immediately after, the floor collapsed. The sword was so powerful that it could bring down a building with just a light touch. Having lost his footing, MC fell down with a loud scream and nervously thought, "What kind of palace is this that can't even support the weight of a weapon?" There was only a little left to the ground. He was scared and mentally exclaimed that he hadn't managed to do anything yet. He can't end up like this. When there were a few meters left before the impact, someone grabbed his clothes and he looked down in fear, thinking, "What happened?" It was Rejeldrake. He flapped his wings with all his might, slowly lifting him up, and Jihoon happily called out to him, saying that he was a real dragon. After that, Rejeldrake carried him over the city, and the locals watched him in surprise. He thought he almost died right there. What a crazy beginning. He appeared right in enemy territory. But thanks to this, he clearly realized the difference in his strength and the kingdom's strength. Everything is just beginning. That's why they only have Aries. But the number of S-ranked knights will only increase, so he needs to accumulate strength. The most important thing now is to escape from the kingdom. Meanwhile, Aries scolded himself for letting the idiot who insulted his majesty escape. He pointed the spear at his own neck and exclaimed, "Can he still call himself elite after this? What a useless, pathetic idiot he is. He is trash, incapable of even thanking his majesty. He should have fought better." All this time, the king's servant was trying to call him, but he did not listen and was preparing to be punished. The servant pointed a finger at him and awkwardly informed him that his majesty was calling him, and Aries immediately fell to his knees, apologizing to the king. He asked him to give him a proper punishment for letting the criminal escape, and Bayless ordered him to stop. The sun is setting, he knows what that means, doesn't he? He replied that at night, monsters become stronger, and the king ordered him to lead the troops and go to the walls to defend the kingdom. He obeyed his order, while MC continued to slowly fly over the city, taking advantage of this time to think things through. The game offered 1 billion for victory, but it was forgotten due to its excessive difficulty. The biggest flaw in the game's balance was the first wave, called Wild Goblin. Unless you start with an S-rank knight dealing area damage, it's practically impossible to win. The kingdom currently has Aries with fire, dealing area damage, so hoping to breach the walls in the first wave isn't worth it. If an S-rank assassin had opened the door instead of Aries, things would have been much worse. By this point, the dragon had weakened completely. He realized they were descending, and Rezeldrake roared, exerting all his strength. Jihoon became worried and asked him to hold on a little longer. There was very little time left to escape the kingdom. But the small dragon couldn't bear his weight, and he fell with a loud cry. He saw a wall ahead and was afraid they would crash. He hit the wall with a thud and fell to the ground, then got up and winced from the pain in his back. While he was shaking the dust off his clothes, he thought that if he was intact after hitting the wall, it meant he had a stable body. He noticed boots nearby. This was what he needed now. He immediately put on the shoes and a girl's voice came from the side, saying that she did not recognize these clothes. Who is he? He turned to her, and as soon as he saw her face, he became very nervous and wondered where another S-rank knight came from. It was Lib, the Holy Knight. She ordered him to identify himself, and he looked at her confidently, thinking that he managed to repel the 100th wave, which no one could pass with her. Even though she is S-rank, she is less effective in defending walls than B-rank knights. Therefore, she is only used for farming dungeons or adventures. The Forgotten Knight Lib. She was the key to victory in the 100th wave, but only he knew it. She pointed her sword at him, commanding him to immediately tell her who he was, and he spoke his name. She asked, "Does he know her?" Despite her blade at his neck, he confidently answered that he knew her well. He had suffered hundreds of failures before he could understand her value. She didn't understand what he meant, and he thought she had played a key role in his old strategy. But now that he had switched factions, she had become an obstacle he needed to eliminate first. Meanwhile, the monsters were approaching. Noticing them, the knights on the ramparts prepared for battle, and the goblins ran to the main gate. The archers immediately opened fire, and a rain of arrows fell upon them, but some of them had managed to break through and were now trying to climb the walls. The knights shot at them and threw stones in an attempt to stop them, but there were too many enemies, and the knight exclaimed that they couldn't hold out like this for long. Where was their commander? One of the soldiers informed them that Lord Aries was already here, and he joyfully asked, "Is that true?" They immediately became inspired and continued to hold the defense. Meanwhile, Lib continued to interrogate Jihoon. She said that there was a war going on now, and if he didn't answer, she would have the last word. He remained silent and thought that he wanted to kill her now to eliminate the dangerous variable, but that was impossible. In close combat, no S-rank knight could defeat her, so it was time for him to retreat. He smiled and told her that in fact, he was just an ordinary citizen from the first circle. He wanted to help in the war, but he got lost. At that very moment, there was a rustling sound. Rizel jumped out from under the rubble nearby and cried out joyfully, and his master became very nervous because he had just ruined his entire plan. Seeing the monster, Lib became wary and exclaimed, "What is he doing here? Was that explosion really his doing?" While the dragon happily flew nearby, MC nervously pursed his lips and thought, "Why now? He is suspected, in which case there is no way back. If he takes off with Rizel again, Lib will attack. Since she is a melee knight, he has no chance of winning. He will not even have time to do anything." But contrary to his expectations, Lib did not attack him and said that she understood the whole situation. He turned to her, surprised at how she appeared behind him so quickly, and she said that she was mistaken. He is just an innocent citizen who is being chased by the monster that attacked the palace. Let him be calm, she will definitely protect him. She approached the dragon, and it looked up at her with a puzzled expression. She frowned, lost in thought, but this small creature was so cute that she couldn't do anything. Then an explosion rang out, distracting her, and Jihoon realized that this was their chance. He exchanged glances with the dragon, pointing his fingers to the side, after which they rose into the sky together. One of the soldiers on the fortress tower scolded his comrade, ordering him to be careful. Does he want to blow up their walls? Meanwhile, Lib looked around, surprised that this citizen had disappeared, and a guard ran up to her, asking her to go to the gate. Meanwhile, the monsters were trying to break into the city. They pounded on the gates, but they were holding for now. The soldiers stood guard, frightened by every knock, and at that moment the fortress gates cracked. Lib arrived, walked between them, and ordered them to drop their bows and prepare for close combat. They were overjoyed at her appearance, while the knights shot at anyone approaching the gates, but they were unable to eliminate the enormous monster that was capable of destroying the entrance to the city. With each blow, the knights trembled in fear more and more. and when the monster's club made a hole in the gate, Lib drew her sword and ordered everyone to prepare for the attack. The monsters broke into the city with a loud roar and the soldiers rushed to the attack, but a second later, a thunderclap was heard. Aries arrived on the battlefield and exclaimed that he was too late. Hearing his voice, Lib immediately turned to him and he frowned, asking, "Is the gate breached?" Calling them all useless fools, he used his skill, burning the monsters, and smirked, telling them to dance. Let them have fun with him. Meanwhile, MC watched the fight from a nearby cliff and thought that the tide of the battle had changed everything. He is the only player to have completed 100 waves, but this time, it is the opposite. His goal is to destroy the human faction. So he needs to destroy 100 of their waves? In the past, this would have seemed impossible to him. He stroked the dragon's head, and then it started to rain, and Jihoon looked at the kingdom with determination, telling Lib to just wait a bit, he would return, and this would be her last battle. Meanwhile, people rejoiced at the victory over the monsters, and someone was watching Jihoon from the forest. It was time to leave. He turned to the forest and thought that he had started over there, in the distance, but now he was here. So this is the lair of the monster faction. This path was not in night defense. He restarted the game hundreds of times just to repel all 100 waves. And thanks to this, he knows the kingdom's battle tactics 100%. But this is not a kingdom. Here he is starting from scratch. He realized that he almost forgot something important, and looked at Drake. He noticed that he was interested in something and followed his gaze. Nearby, there were more ants carrying food in the word lair, and seeing a huge creature above them, they fled in fear. MC looked at this small dragon and thought that the more he watched, the more it reminded him of a cat. But what should he do now? As soon as he asked this, a system window with the main quest appeared. He needed to unite monsters and form a faction, and as a reward, he would receive a random ability. He rubbed his chin in confusion and wondered if he needed to recruit them personally. Starting monsters usually spawn small goblins around this time. He looked around and wondered why there were no goblins or rabbits here. And if he found someone, how would he talk to them? He needed to understand them to recruit them. At that moment, a rustling sound was heard from the side of the forest. Something quickly jumped out at him and ordered him to die. Noticing the creature's sharp claws quickly approaching his neck, he was startled, but then for some reason it stopped. Realizing that nothing had happened, he opened his eyes slightly and looked at the monster, and imagined his surprise when he saw a beastman named Rhea in front of him. He hadn't yet had time to fully examine her and asked, "Is she a rabbit woman?" At his words, she became indignant and exclaimed in rage, "What about her even reminds him of a cute rabbit?" She pointed to her ears and said that, if anything, she looked more like a fox. Jihoon pointed out that he didn't say she was cute, and she exclaimed that she had clearly heard that. She pointed to her ears a few more times furiously, and he thoughtfully remarked, "So she's a white fox." He looked her over, after which a thought struck his head, and he excitedly asked, "Is she an Arctic fox?" She ignored his question, smelling something. She started sniffing him from all sides and said it was strange. He looks human, but for some reason he smells like a monster. He raised one eyebrow in confusion, and the system notified him that 2 passive abilities were permanently activated. He could talk to monsters and attract positive attention. He said, puzzled, that now he understood why he understood them, and the fox irritatedly noted that he was talking to himself again. She pointed a finger at him, then unsheathed her claws and exclaimed, "Who the hell is he?" Frightened by this sharp murder weapon, he began to mumble something, then turned his gaze to the system window and thought that this was strange. The passive ability, Nice Monster, should only attract positive attention. At that moment, something flashed before his eyes. It was an arrow with a rope tied to it. It pierced the fox, and the bandits who were hunting it emerged from the forest. MC glanced at them and realized there were people outside the kingdom. Was this a bandit faction or something? Rhea thought he was in league with them, and, gritting her teeth in rage, said that she knew it. So it was he who set a trap here? Why were they chasing them? What did they want from them? Jihoon wanted to explain to her that it was all a misunderstanding, and one of the bandits, taking the rope, asked him to stop mumbling. After that, he yanked it towards himself with all his might and shouted, "What is he even talking about?" The fox jumped, and the rope pulled her straight towards the bandit, and MC watched them worriedly. As soon as Rhea approached, the man struck, already thinking he had managed to catch her. But imagine his surprise when he saw that his fist did almost no harm to her. Immediately after that, there was a counterattack. He saw her foot approaching his face, and a moment later, his head was slammed into the ground, which surprised the bandits. After that, the girl was thrown aside, and Jihoon thought in surprise, "He is so small," but he knocked her down with one blow. "Go to the lying fox." The bandit called her a dirty mongrel and began to kick her with his foot, telling her to shut up and give up. Stop complicating things. MC thought that something was wrong here. People are chasing her. She is just a monster. He clenched his fist and thought, why? The bandit leader approached him and asked if he was okay. This could have ended very badly, There are a lot of beastmen here, so he should be more careful. He asked what he was doing here alone, and when he was about to answer him, the fox began to say something. But the bandits did not understand her. One of them took out a baton and asked, "Has she not come to her senses yet? What is she even saying?" He swung his arm and was about to hit her, and at that moment Ji-hoon's eyes flashed. Luckily, their leader told his comrade to stop. She would die if he continued. The man immediately froze and apologized to him, saying that he lost his temper again. MC breathed a sigh of relief, and the guy said that his men could be a little hot-tempered, after which he smirked and asked, "He had talked to this monster earlier, right?" After these words, Ji-hoon felt a burning sensation in his stomach. He looked down and saw a dagger sticking out of his body. The guy said that someone like him would make their job a lot easier if they only knew. MC pulled out the dagger and, pressing his hand to the wound, asked what he was talking about. The fox looked at him worriedly. She realized that he was not with them, and meanwhile he felt as if his body was burning and wondered what it was. The guy smiled and told him not to worry. He hadn't hit any vital organs. He felt so sick that he started spitting blood, and the bandit showed him a flask of potion and said he would die in 12 minutes. And this was the antidote. If he wanted to survive, he should translate everything she said. His comrade grabbed the fox by the hair and lifted her up, and the guy ordered him to find out where the fox's lair was. He glanced at them nervously, while Drake was somewhere nearby. From his face, the bandit realized he had no idea what lair they were talking about, and he explained to him that there was a village where beastmen lived. If he helped them find that place, he would stay alive. Ji-hoon asked why a village, and the fox said that if he led them there, everyone would be in danger. She stuck out her tongue, and the MC was startled for a second, after which one of the bandits stuck his hand in her mouth, and her teeth sank into his skin. It turns out she was trying to silence herself forever to protect the village. The fox growled loudly in displeasure, and the guy said that it was no wonder they were called savages. Everyone they caught dies within a day. How would they even find the fox's den? He hit the girl in the stomach with all his might, causing her jaw to relax and the bandit's hand to free itself. After that, he noted that they didn't value their lives at all. He ordered the others not to interfere, in case there were more of them, and Ji-hoon thought that foxes were smart animals. Even if they didn't understand the language, they could sense danger. The other men moved away from them, and the leader turned to the MC and told him to translate her words. Take them to the fox's den, where they could calmly take what they needed and leave. Ji-hoon asked what exactly they were taking, and he told him that their boss had lost something. If they found it, he and the fox would survive. His gaze reminded him of that girl. She constantly swore that this would be the last time, that she would return everything next week, but her gaze was as deceitful as his. But it didn't matter. He remembered how that girl had protected him from bullies because he gave her money, and he thought that as long as they got what they wanted, as long as he was useful, they wouldn't kill him. He can't die yet. He approached Rhea and told her to take these people to the village, then no one would get hurt. She remained silent, and the bandits standing nearby called out to their leader in surprise and asked if he really spoke the language of monsters. Rhea said that he was different from other people. Perhaps they were too cautious towards them, but there were more than 100 beastmen living in that village. Could she trust him? He remained silent, looked away, and said that he was not on the side of humanity. She could believe him. These people were bad. He wanted to say something else, but when he turned his gaze to the bandit leader, he froze and thought that it was Riesel. The small dragon opened its mouth wider, gathering energy, and the bandit leader asked why he had stopped translating. His question made him nervous, and, without taking his eyes off the dragon, he began mumbling something, which immediately made them realize something was wrong. One of the bandits saw a monster behind their leader's head, and, realizing it was about to attack, called out to him and warned him of the danger. MC thought it was too late to dodge. He was about to use his dragon's breath. The guy didn't have time to run away and fearfully begged for mercy. But the dragon spat a drop of fire at him, and everyone froze in shock. Ji-hoon was the most shocked. The bandits were speechless, and Riesel squealed excitedly, clearly not expecting this. MC gritted his teeth in frustration, realizing the reload was still on, and one of the bandits, pointing to the molten grass, nervously said that he hadn't attacked with full force yet. If he had hit his head, it would have been the end of him. Their leader picked up a club from the ground, swung it at the little dragon with all his might, and exclaimed that he hadn't even gotten married yet. There was a loud thud, and the dragon was thrown aside and lost consciousness. The bandit then exclaimed, "How dare he try to punch a hole in his precious head?" One of his subordinates said he had never seen such a monster. What will they do now? They will fetch a good price if they catch him. He walked towards the dragon and told him that he didn't need him. Ji-hoon became worried, and the bandit ordered the guys to keep an eye on them while he dealt with the monster that dared to ambush him. Riesel was still unconscious, and MC gritted his teeth and thought, If he can talk to monsters, will he survive? Here he is once again defining his worth by trying to survive in such a pathetic way. That's why he is useless. Even knowing where this will lead, he doesn't want to regret anything anymore. The bandit leader pounced on the small, defenseless dragon, intending to finish him off, and Rhea anxiously leaned forward, but since she was wounded and tied up, she could do nothing. Jihoon decisively walked past her and, activating his passive ability, Physical Monster, which grants him superhuman strength, struck the guy and declared that he was useless. His blow was so powerful that it threw the bandit several meters away, and he hit a rock, shattering it. Everyone was shocked by what they saw, and the bandits immediately rushed to their boss, but the attack shattered the flask with the antidote. The girl glanced at him and thought his eyes were different. He was dying from poison. So how was he even still moving? But the next sight shocked her even more. He picked up the small dragon in his arms and remarked that he had come to save him. He stroked it, and Rizel purred in response, and then he smiled and said that it reminded him of someone who was there and gave him strength, made him smile. This was his only friend. The dragon looked up at him, and with a bitter smile he swore that he would protect him at any cost. Cargo screamed. Does he even know who their leader is? If the boss finds out about this, they will be finished. Jihoon looked at them with displeasure, causing the men to tense up. They ran towards the forest and ordered them to watch out. Rizeldrake growled joyfully, and MC fell to the ground. Rhea looked at this in surprise, and Rizeldrake began to run around him in fear. Jihoon thought, is he really going to die like this? If he dies here, what will happen then? After a while, he remembered sitting next to the hospital bed and saying, Mom, this idiot, he never came. He opened his eyes and asked where he was. Rhea was carrying him on her back and telling him not to move yet. MC asked, why her? Him. After a while, screams were heard. Rhea was back. She brought a person with her. The rabbit girls looked at MC in surprise and said, he looks like a human, but there's something wrong with him. For some reason, he's attractive. MC was lying in the hut, and the girls were peeping through the window and saying, the poison must have already been neutralized. I wonder when he'll wake up? Jihoon lay there with his eyes closed and thought, he's already awake, but with everyone looking at him like that, he just can't get up. Rhea clapped her hands and said, please, let them give him some space. Their guest won't be able to rest peacefully if they make so much noise. The girls asked, Rhea, was she really saved by a human? She said, questions later. MC narrowed one eye and thought, that voice. Rhea entered the hut and asked, he's already awake, right? MC turned around and Rhea asked him to understand them. He looks like a human. It's the first time they've seen a person who smells different, MC said. Judging by her words, his identity is too vague. He looked at his hands and said, it seems the poison's effect has already worn off. Rhea spoke. Fortunately, they had an antidote in the village. Jihoon asked again, in the village? He remembered how the man held Rhea by the head, and she said that if she brought them to the village, everyone would be in danger. MC spoke. She was so wary of him. Why was that? She answered. She said because he is a human, but he doesn't smell like a human. Jihoon asked, only because of that? Rhea thought, and because she saw him like that. MC turned away and asked, she brought him to the village, even gave him an antidote. Maybe this is the influence of the pleasant monster ability? Rhea asked displeasedly. What was he muttering there? She pointed her hand at him and shouted, why is he talking so much? God, he irritates her even after she saved him. Rizeldrake yawned, and MC said thank you. Rhea said, no, she means it. This is too much. She cleared her throat and turned away and said, I mean, he saved her too. So they're even. Well, if he's really that grateful. Rizeldrake growled loudly, attracting MC's attention. He looked away and said, that scream. Rizeldrake rushed to him, and Jihoon said that it tickled. They started hugging happily, and Rhea asked, Rizeldrake, by the way, they don't even know each other's names, right? Since fate brought them together, they should at least introduce themselves. Her name is. Suddenly, a rabbit girl burst into the room and screamed, Rhea, the elder is looking for her. He said to come with the guest. They went outside and MC happily said, this is the village of the Beastmen. Warrior, Rhea said, this village was built by the rabbit beastmen, but now the beastmen who lost their villages also live here. They united. The girl asked, Rhea, how's her leg? She replied, everything is fine, thank you for asking. The bull said, Rhea, he heard, she went into the forest again, where people walk. MC looked at him with fear and said, wow. Rhea replied, yes, she will be more careful from now on. The bull looked after MC and Rhea, who were walking towards the elder. Jihoon said, everyone in the village cares so much about her, Rhea. She replied, yeah. MC asked, what happened? She seemed kind of sad. Rhea replied, yes, it's good that he asked. She screamed, which scared MC. He asked, what? She asks, his name is Hei? He sighed and said, his name is Jihoon. Kim Jihoon. He thinks that's a pretty unusual name for these parts. Rhea said, Rhea Lindrian Pernity Sailord. MC asked again, what? She said that's her name. The rabbit asked, Rhea, is your leg okay? Rhea sat down next to him and said she fixed it, so everything's fine now. Where does this tunnel lead? Jihoon looked at her and thought, he thought she suddenly seemed to have become more cheerful. He thinks she just wanted to say her name. The main task is to unite the monsters and create a faction. That very faction of monsters. Really? Rhea interrupted MC's thoughts and asked what he was doing there. She said to go already. They need to see the elder. He looked at her and said, exactly. Jihoon wondered if she still called him, hey, why did she even ask his name? Rhea turned around and ordered him to hurry. He answered, yes, yes. MC thought, unite the monsters and create a faction. Will he be able to? After a while, the elder said, he hands over the village to him. Rhea's eyes widened in surprise, and MC froze from what he heard. He asked for a minute, and Rhea screamed, elder. The man turned around and said, he's too old already. Jihoon spoke up, but he doesn't know anything about the village. Rhea screamed, what are you talking about? He wants to hand over the village to him just because of some dream. It's his first time here. How can you trust him with the village? The old man laughed and said, the decision has already been made. Rhea rushed after him and screamed, elder, let him think about it some more. Elder. She doesn't agree. MC was left behind. A little while later, the elder said, he often has strange dreams, and they always come true. Only he can save their village. The system window reported, the second main quest, create a monster faction. You need to unite the monsters and form a faction. Reward, random ability. Is this related to the main quest? The more important thing is that save the village means that something is supposed to happen here, right? He remembered the guy's words. Their boss lost something. They will find it, and he and the wild girl will survive. MC's eyes widened in surprise, and he said, Rhea. She turned around and asked, what? He asked, did anyone follow her when she came here? Rhea replied, Warrior Village is hidden behind a rocky mountain. No one has ever found it before. The reason for this is that behind the steep rocky city is a wide sea. No one dared to cross the mountain, and there was no reason to. There is only one way to get to Warrior without crossing the mountain. These are tunnels dug by rabbits. Even if someone found them, it is unlikely that anyone would cope with the complex structure of the labyrinth. Therefore, it is almost impossible for an outsider to get to Warrior. She didn't notice anything strange when she exited the tunnel. MC said, that changes things, but he has an uneasy feeling. What is it? At that moment, Cargo stood in the tunnel and, laughing joyfully, said, he found it. There was a loud scream. A man entered the Warrior. The bull started shouting something unintelligible, and Cargo was lying on the ground and asking, what are they saying? MC asked with displeasure, was he following them? He was following the trail of blood. Rhea asked, had he been following her all this time? She was careful enough. She apologized, it's all her fault. The bull said, no need to blame yourself. Bringing the wounded here was hard. They caught the intruder. Now they just need to wipe away the traces of blood and everything will be fine. The rabbit girls said, everything is fine, Rhea. It's not her fault. MC frowned and said, wait, there were 3 bandits. Where are the other 2? Cargo screamed, stupid beastmen. This place will soon be engulfed in flames. Even the kingdom has disowned their gang. They are led by their leader, screamed Spike. He will be here any minute, and with him about 200 brothers. Jihoon asked again. Scream Spike. At that moment, the guys were walking through the tunnel. The guy screamed, the leader, no, bro, he hit him. Let him take revenge on him. Scream Spike sat silently. The guy continued screaming. He found a tunnel leading to the village. He will lead him. The leader laughed and said, good job, kid. They are heading to the tunnel right now. At that moment, Cargo said, he is not the only one who got here. This is all part of Big Brother's plan. A while ago, the guy screamed, stop. He said stop. The man said, bro, he needs to heal. The guy turned around and ordered Cargo to keep up. It is too early to return to the shelter. This is their chance. Cargo was sitting on the ground and screaming. From now on he can consider himself a dead man. Rhea asked, what is he talking about? She looked at MC and screamed, Jihoon. MC frowned and said, it looks like the bandits found out where the village is. They will be here soon. Rhea's eyes widened in fear, and Jihoon thought, scream Spike. That sounds familiar. He remembered. In Night Defense, knights gain experience and become stronger by killing monsters attacking the kingdom. But that's not enough to repel the endless waves. That's why there's a leveling mode. Adventure. There, specific knights are also selected. Players receive various items for completing adventure stages. The adventure begins with the Wild Goblin Cemetery and ends with the Demon King's Sacred Grounds. It consists of 100 stages. He doesn't remember the names of all the stages, but he vaguely remembers the ending. A village hidden behind a stone mountain. He remembers that each stage had a backstory, but MC didn't read everything. He remembered the system window about the Scream Spike hideout. It's a brutal gang led by the notorious Scream Spike. But Jihoon can be sure of one thing. There's no stage called Warrior. According to the game's lore, this place was destroyed. Cargo said he had a proposal. He'll ask the boss to spare the one who frees him. MC thought the beastmen might not understand these words, but they had already penetrated their hearts. The girl said something was wrong. This is fear. Rhea lowered her head and said, it's because of her. Because of her, Warrior, their village. MC thought, if this continues, everyone will be killed. Cargo screamed. He said, let them untie him. MC thought, Warrior will become a hideout for bandits. He can't let that happen. Cargo screamed, do they want to die or what? Jihoon walked forward and thought, Warrior will become the stronghold of his monster faction. Cargo screamed. He's right here. Let him translate quickly. MC clenched his fist and hit the man in the face. Warrior will be their fortress. Cargo screamed loudly, and the beastman looked at what was happening in surprise. Rhea grabbed her face and said, Ji-hoon, he said, enough useless chatter. He suggested they fight. They will protect Warrior at any cost. After a while, the bull said, it's impossible. He asked MC to look back. They built a village behind the mountain and took refuge here because they are weak. Mostly women and children live here, who have never really fought, much less opposed armed bandits. The elder laughed and Rhea turned and looked at him. He asked, she was always wise, wasn't she? Since everyone was gathered, he would say it again. From today on, Ji-hoon is the warrior elder. At that moment, Scream Spike stopped and asked, so this is the place? The guy answered, yes, that's it. Scream Spike said, a village hidden behind the mountain. He likes it. He suggested capturing it too. And they will make a shelter here. Forward. He ordered his bandits to kill everyone. After a while, a bull stood near the gate and said, there will be about 200 bandits, and their fighters, 3 bulls, including him, 2 deer, 5 sheep, 1 fox, and finally, rabbits. They have a minimum of 101 fighters, and a maximum of 112. Do they have a chance of winning? MC put his hand to his face and said, there will be twice as many enemies, yes. But this is not an ordinary battle. In games, it's not numbers that matter, but individual characteristics, namely, rank and level. Rhea was attacked, but she was able to kill the bandit with 1 blow. 3, hardly, but she would have defeated 2 alone. The bulls said that the locals had never fought before. But this could mean perhaps they underestimate them. Their ability is not as weak as it seems, he shouted. Beast form. If everyone had a level almost like Rhea's, they would be able to overcome the enemy's numerical advantage. He turned to the bull, and it asked to be called Brimlock the Tor. Ji-hoon said, Tor. By warrior standards, how strong is Rhea? He scratched his face with a pen and said how strong she is. MC thought, yeah, come to think of it, this is the starting quest. It can't be impossible, can it? Brimlock said, she is the strongest warrior in Warrior. Even if they all attack her, she will win. Ji-hoon's face darkened after these words and thought, that is, even if they attacked her together, they would lose. So they are absolutely useless, right? After a while, Rhea said, by sunset, the people will reach the cave entrance. MC asked, so there is still time? But how does she know? Rhea answered, well, she asked. He looked towards Cargo and asked, she asked, right? As expected of the greatest warrior. By the way, the bandits said they were looking for something their leader lost. Does she know what it could be? Rhea asked, the human leader's belonging? MC replied that it might be about the treasures the beastmen had treasured for centuries, or about resource deposits in the depths of Warrior. Rhea said, this is just a small village where the beastmen who lost their homes have gathered. They certainly don't have anything that would interest humans. Ji-hoon frowned and said, maybe they just needed a pretext. At that moment, Brimlock asked, what will he order, village leader? Everyone was waiting. MC turned to Taurus and thoughtfully looked down. He thought that to compensate for the enemy's numerical superiority, their individual stats must be high. The strongest in Warrior is Rhea, and then there are 111 beastmen who couldn't defeat Rhea even if they all attacked together. But can Rhea really defeat 111 people? Are the rabbits weak? Or is Rhea simply too strong? He doesn't understand anything at all. If only he could see the exact levels and stats, like in the games, then he could roughly estimate. Wait a minute, stats? MC's eyes widened in surprise and remembered how a system window with passive skills appeared in front of him, allowing him to view the stats of monsters and items. How did he activate it back then? Usually, when you want to see stats in a situation like this, he remembered, just like that. Currently, he extended his hand and shouted, stats. Rhea looked at him, puzzled, but nothing happened. Ji-hoon thought, usually when he did that, a window with stats would appear. The inventory also opens if you say it out loud. At that moment, a system window appeared in front of him with an inventory called Abyss Slot. As expected, it was completely empty. Abyss Slot? So that's the full version of the name? Apparently monsters even have a different name for their inventory. Abyss Storage. What? By the way, after escaping from the palace due to the endless chain of events, he simply lost sight of this. His sword. It still fell so abruptly. Did he really throw the sword somewhere in the kingdom itself? He clenched his fist and bit his lip in irritation. He thought, no, he should have put it in his inventory or something. And he can't take it back now, so no matter how sad it is, he can't do anything about it now. But why isn't the stats window opening? Is there any other way? He currently has 4 passive skills activated. These are the Overlord's Gaze, the Monster Communicator passive skill, the Monster Sympathy passive skill, and the Monster Physical Might passive skill. Besides the Overlord's Gaze, the other passive skills are maintained continuously from the moment they are first activated. Rhea screamed in irritation. How long will he have to think? He needs to do something already. The enemies are already approaching. MC thought maybe one of them stopped working. Rhea lowered her head and asked what they should do. This is her fault. She wants to protect Warrior and the villagers. Ji-hoon thought, Rhea, right? There's no time at all. There's no point in obsessing over how to open the stats window or check stats. He looked at Rhea, and the system windows reported that the target had been identified and the Overlord's gaze was activated. MC thought in surprise. Target identification? If you think about it, the inventory is a system function for viewing the items he has. That's why it worked just thinking about it, but Overlord's gaze is a skill. It allows you to see the stats of monsters and items. Everything turned out to be simpler. To activate the passive skill Overlord's gaze, just select a target and think about its stats. That's why it's called Overlord's gaze. So Rhea's stats are B rank. B rank is the same level as a mid-class knight. He thought she was weaker. A water elemental warrior, her stats focus on attack power. So her skill is really beast form. Rhea said Jihoon, it must be hard for him, since he suddenly became the village chief, but does he listen to her? MC answered, yes. Rhea said, after all, he is the chief now. MC saw the heart and thought, what is this? He poked it, and Rhea said that she will do everything to help him. Jihoon started poking the heart and wondering why the indicator is dropping. In fact, he was poking Rhea in the nose, who was very angry. She said she is speaking right in front of him, but MC asked, why his hand? Rhea shouted in displeasure, he is fooling around like this, and they handed him the fate of warrior as the chief. MC said, no, he didn't do it on purpose. Rhea screamed, it's hard to believe. After a while, Brimlock asked, the village chief? MC said, Tor, let him bring all the villagers here. Brimlock said, the chief. He turned around and waved his hand, saying he was fine. He laughed and said, please. After a while, shouts of next, next, next were heard. Jihoon sat on a rock and examined everyone. A ram approached him and said, he's the last one. MC touched his forehead and said, checking everyone's stats is so exhausting. The warrior population numbered 114, including them. Among them, the highest-ranking one was undoubtedly Rizeldrake. For an S-rank monster, a normal attack seemed too weak, but everything was focused on magical attack and defense. And Dragon's Breath uses up all your mana points at once. Even after a day, only half had recovered, so one shot every 2 days. Dragon's Breath cannot be used in this battle. At the moment, he has Rhea with a B rank and Taurus with a C rank. The rest are mostly E rank. Now he understands why all of them together can't defeat Rhea. Compared to the Knights of the Kingdom, D rank is a knight apprentice, and E rank isn't even in the grading system. He doesn't know what level the bandits are, but the difficulty of completing stages from the 1st to the 10th is roughly equivalent to a C rank. Now that MC has checked everyone's ranks, he understands the situation much better. Troop numbers, army quality, equipment, they are inferior in all these areas. With this scenario, it will be impossible to protect warrior. But this is not a game, this is reality. There are too many factors that are beyond the game system. Somehow, MC will introduce the variables. Jihoon stepped forward and said, Taurus, Rhea, from now on he will explain the plan of action. At this moment, the bandits were already approaching the mountain, and the rabbits were watching them. The guy said, they're coming. They need to quickly return and warn the village chief. These idiots will soon reach the entrance. Suddenly, a bandit attacked him, and the guy fell. Rain looked at him in fear and said, brother. Scream Spike asked, do they know they're coming? Rain looked at her brother's body in fear, and then closed her eyes and heard a scream. Let her run. Scream Spike ordered to catch them. The guy asked, brother, stop, boss. Is he just gonna let them go? Scream Spike replied, he's not going to let them go. He's infecting them. At that moment, MC was leading the beastmen and ordering, Team 2, hurry up. Team 1, get there. Rain ran out of the tunnel and screamed, they're here, humans. Rhea asked, Rain, why is she bleeding? She ran and kept screaming, the humans are already here. MC's hands started shaking, and he clenched them into fists and thought, he's the only player who has withstood 100 waves. This is the first line of defense in the monster faction. There's no way he'll let them pass. The bandits were already approaching the tunnel, and Scream Spike asked, so this is it, the Fox's Den, huh? The guy replied, yes, boss. They found out the route. Scream Spike said that he didn't want to drag it out. He suggested finishing before sunset. The bandits shouted loudly and approvingly. Rhea said, he's here. Will their plan work? MC said, for this operation, the beginning is crucial. The guy said, at this rate, they'll probably reach the village in half an hour. Scream Spike said, it's quiet here. The bandit grinned and said, those stupid idiots, they look like they're hiding in the village and shaking with fear. That bastard who hit him, he'll get even with him personally. He looked at his feet and said, there's a sound coming from underground. The ground began to crack, and the man screamed, everyone move away. The bandits fell through the ground, and Scream Spike managed to catch the man at the last moment. The bandit screamed, his arm and leg are broken. The man got out and said, boss, these idiots set traps. It's a trap made by digging holes, covering them with wooden planks, and then adding a layer of earth and stones. When the load exceeds a certain weight, the support beams break, and the target flies straight into the hole. The guy said, when they passed by yesterday, there were no traps. If there are more here, it's too dangerous. The man screamed, boss, there's a chance that there are more traps set here. If they go randomly, it will happen. Scream Spike said, they're idiots. He grabbed a huge rock with one hand and swung it. The guys screamed, traps, how did they know where to set it? Spike said, "This is an artificially dug cave in a rocky mountain. Originally, there was a solid rock surface here. Even if they dug holes, covered it with wood, and piled earth and stones on top, the difference can be seen if you look closely." The guy replied. It became clear to him now. The areas with a lot of gravel are traps, savages with their pathetic tricks. Spike said that maybe the predators will fall for this, but the herbivorous demi-humans are weak. These traps only confirm their weakness. He ordered a few people to be left behind to pull out those who fell. They continue their advance, bypassing the traps. Rhea said they found the traps. In that case, MC clenched his fist and said, "As planned." Rhea asked, "Is letting them find him part of the plan?" MC said that chiseling an entire stone, even with the demi-human's increased strength, would take too much time. Perfectly concealing the holes was impossible in such a short time. He assumed that these hasty traps wouldn't work on anyone with even a shred of brains more than once. There are only 2 deep traps. All the rest are fake. This is so they have time for the next stage. Because of the traps, they will slow down a lot. Rhea looked at him in surprise, and he suggested moving on to the next one. At that moment, one of the walls of the mountain began to crack. The guy said, "At the fork ahead, they go right, and they will get to the right place." Spike asked, "At the fork?" Actually, the guy looked at the 3 passages and shouted, "Hasn't this happened before? He has seen these weeds before. In his opinion, there is a left, not a right." The man said he was thinking right. Spike said, "It seems they know a lot about cheap traps and illusions. But this will not stop them." He understood. This is how they buy time. They are preparing something in the village. They must not hesitate. They divide into 3 squads and move forward. The left tunnel, his brother nicknamed Crane, will take it. The middle one, for Dump, and he will take the right one. Everyone went to their tunnels, after which the guy said, "There is a dead end further on." Crane said discontentedly, "Horror, the wrong way." He ordered to move back. At that time someone said, "Boss Dump, there is a light." He happily grabbed his hammer and said, "Yes, here it is." He ordered everyone to get ready for battle. The guy extended his hand forward and said, "Boss, let him see the exit." Spike grinned and said, "Only the right tunnel was correct. These guys, so unlucky." He ordered to kill them all without mercy. Dump rushed forward and shouted, "Attack!" Suddenly Spike stopped and widened his eyes in surprise. He asked, "What the horror?" He was standing near the exit, but which was dug around the mountain. Dump screamed. They found them. He ordered to hold positions. He turned and ordered the guy to return to the fork and inform the boss and deputy. The guy answered, "Yes, boss." The guy pointed to the side and ordered them to look. Cargo was sitting tied up near a tree. The bandits shouted loudly, "Cargo! Cargo! You idiot monsters!" Dump ran up to him and asked, "Cargo, is he okay?" Cargo yelled, "What's wrong with the boss?" And the deputy? He looked around and asked, "Why are there so few of them left?" At that moment, the bandit who was sent to the head was walking along the tunnel. Rhea attacked him, and he flew aside. MC folded his arms and said, "They can't reveal their plans yet." This numerical advantage was hard won. Using false traps to save time, they changed the terrain to confuse the enemy. These primitive traps, they make the enemy underestimate them and divide their forces. At that moment, Cargo shouted, "They're divided. 3 against 60? That's not enough." Now they are surrounded, turning their numerical disadvantage into an advantage. Dump looked around and saw that the beastmen had surrounded them from all sides. 113 fighters against 60. Jihoon emerged from the tunnel and said, "All units, attack!" His real plan begins now. Dump swung his hammer and ordered to kill them all. The bandits rushed towards the beastmen, and MC shouted, "Now! Now! All units transform into beast." The bandit punched the air and widened his eyes in surprise. He asked, "Did they disappear?" MC thought, when the beastmen transform, they emit smoke. He remembered seeing this a while ago and saying, "Wow, if they use this in battle, they can create a smoke screen." Next target, Taurus. That's him. Grimlock snuck up behind the bandits and attacked, knocking them aside. There was a loud scream. "Idiot." The guy was swinging his weapon, when suddenly the rabbits attacked him and hit him in the face. The bandit started to run away and shouted, "Terrible rabbit, stop!" The bandits beat the sheep and ordered it to die. It didn't hurt, but it was offensive. It didn't understand why they weren't joining in. Suddenly, stones flew at the bandits' bodies, causing them pain. The guy screamed. His head. Rizeldrake flew past them, and they ordered him to come here. With the numerical advantage and surprise attacks due to the smoke, they gained the advantage. This plan will definitely lead them to victory. A scream was heard from the side. Who is he teasing? Cargo ordered him to cover. Terrible rabbits. He took out a harpoon and ordered him to die. MC saw this and asked Rhea to support this side. She responded. She understood. She quickly moved to help, and Jihoon thought, so fast. Cargo frowned and said, "Rabbit idiots. He will kill them." He fired and it flew towards Rhea. She saw this and dodged, then somersaulted and tried to hit the bandit. He smirked and asked, "Is that all she can do?" Rhea jumped down and unexpectedly kicked the bandit in the face. She knocked him to the ground and moved on to the next one. Cargo asked in surprise, "What is she doing?" She approached him, and he cried out in fear. "Terrible animals!" Rhea attacked him, slamming him into the ground. She ordered him not to underestimate them again. Dump stood in the center, clenching his fist in irritation. He said, "These idiots." He activated the skill and the muscles on one arm grew. MC asked, "Skill?" He doesn't know about that aspect of monsters, but in Knight Defense, skills are only available to knights with rank C and above. Dump, he has rank C. His skill is a strength boost that increases his size, and his attack and defense increase by 50%. He said, "They're pathetic fools. They're losing to tiny monsters." Dump called his bandits weaklings when suddenly a tree trunk broke next to him. He turned around and saw Brimlack. Dump asked, "What's that?" He pushed away and disappeared, and Jihoon looked at it in surprise. At that moment, Crane was sitting in the tunnel, asking how much longer they have to wait. Why isn't anyone coming back? He stood up discontentedly and clicked his tongue and said, "Okay. They don't need to worry about the boss. They'll go after Dump." After a while, MC looked at the bandits whose heads were sticking out of the ground. He said, "All 60 of them have been captured. With so many prisoners, they don't need to worry about escaping." "Okay, Taurus, what are their losses?" Brimlack replied, 23 beastmen are seriously wounded. They can't continue the fight. 42 beastmen with minor injuries. They are able to continue fighting. MC thought for a moment. 113 against 60. Despite almost doubling their numbers, they suffered more than half the losses. Nevertheless, the operation was a success. But this is not the end. The remaining enemies still outnumber them. Now, in addition to their numerical superiority, it's time for them to strengthen their power. He turned to Taurus and said, "From now on, let him distribute weapons to everyone." The beastmen picked up their weapons from the ground. The protagonist activated the Overlord's Eye. MC wondered if their attack power had really increased. This exceeded all his expectations. At the same time, the bandits were walking through the cave. Crane asked, "Is it here?" But why was it so quiet? He noticed the heads lying on the ground. Crane winced in horror. He screamed and exclaimed, "They're heads!" The people made sounds, and Crane asked in amazement, "Are they alive? What are they doing here?" Crane asked the people to wait, and clarified that he would get them out. "Why are there so many holes in the ground?" The man screamed, looking at the flying rabbits, and Crane calmly said that he was coming. Crane, having received a blow, screamed. After some time, the bandits quickly ran through the cave. Scream Spike sternly exclaimed that without a map, they would get lost. The comrade turned to the boss and shouted that he thought they were on the right path. Through this passage, they would reach the crossroad. The bandits stopped in place and screamed that it was a trap. The weight was too heavy. They were all going to fall. The bandit clenched his teeth in fear, and falling down, cried out that it was too late. It was collapsing. The ground appeared under the bandits' feet, and they fell. The man asked in confusion, "What happened?" The comrade, looking down in amazement, clarified that it was a trap. The comrade grabbed the boss's weapon with his hand and turned to him. Scream Spike thrust his spear into the ground. Cracks appeared in the ground, and the comrades clarified, "Is the floor really stone?" The boss laughed maliciously and said that the trap was only at the entrance. Everything else was fake. They dared to play with him. Scream Spike grinned and said he would kill them. The bandit, holding his hand, called out to the boss. He shouted that he had found it. It was a tunnel in the middle. Scream Spike smiled joyfully. At the same time, the beastmen turned to the village chief and said that they had caught everyone. Jihoon noted that they had done a good job. He thought that by breaking through just one wall at the crossroad, they had reopened the path back to the entrance. This gave them more time. Now they only had to hold out one more time. The plug in Crane's mouth fell off. He called the protagonist a fool. Crane noted that it didn't matter what they did to the bandits. As soon as their boss arrived, the enemies would be finished. The man named All operated on a completely different level. Rhea angrily kicked him in the face and asked for silence. She clarified that, per MC's recommendation, she only counted those who could fight. About 65 remained. Jihoon estimated there were about 60 remaining bandits, including the leader. Although they lacked stamina, after 2 battles, as expected, their battle experience had grown. "That's good. The comrades have become stronger." The protagonist exhaled tensely and noted that the sword was heavier than he thought. The bandits emerged from the cave. Rhea exclaimed that they were coming. Scream Spike looked at what was happening, and Crane, tilting his head to the side, called out to his brother. Scream Spike arrogantly called them damned fools. He asked if that was all the opponents could do. The protagonist clarified, "Isn't that the opposite of a strategy?" Scream Spike laughed and noted that MC had become more confident. 2 victories are good, but there won't be a third. Jihoon confidently gripped the hilt of his sword and said that they would find out. He asked to make the bandit an offer. More precisely, a gift. The protagonist brought the sword to Crane's neck and ordered the bandits to drop their weapons. If Scream Spike didn't want his brother to die, Scream Spike remained silent, and Crane called out to his brother in fear. MC thought this looked like something only bad villains from movies or comics would do, but now was not the time for principles. If the bandits agreed, the protagonist paused and looked at Scream Spike, who had fallen to his knees. He wondered in amazement, was the leader really giving in? The bandits laughed maliciously, and Jihoon wondered, what is this? The atmosphere was strange. Scream Spike smiled terrifyingly and creating a magical seal on the ground, said that the opponents would fall to their knees before him and scream in agony. The protagonist angrily asked not to tell him that. He wondered, is Scream Spike a weapon with an area of effect ability? The system window notified that this was a skill, the Screaming Scream Spike. It increased the stats of all allies within the area of effect by 25%. MC thought that even without seeing their stats, they could physically feel it. The opponent's fighting ability had become incredibly strong. Scream Spike, standing among the terrifying bandits, told them to start fighting now. The protagonist thought that even without knowing the bandits' stats, their strength could be felt in every blow. That's it, their fighting power had increased dramatically. Scream Spike ordered them to attack, and the opponents rushed into battle. The bandits looked at the beastmen with fury. Smoke enveloped the area. The hare jumped toward the opponent, raising his mace. He delivered a powerful attack to the opponent's head. The hare looked at the bandit in bewilderment. The opponent madly pulled his tongue out of his mouth and asked, "Are they finished?" The hares looked at the opponent in horror. Brimlack struck the enemy with his mace, and the bandit flew to the side. The bandits ordered to grab him, and Brimlack turned his head to the side. Ropes wrapped around the beastman's arms and neck. The bandit ordered his comrade to pull. The comrade, taut on the rope, yelled at the bandit not to let go of the enemy, no matter what. You need to tie it around his arms and use all your strength to hold the enemy. Brimlock quickly fell to his knees, and the bandits screamed that this was their chance. They screamed for the enemy to die. They will have beer today. The beastman, engulfed in flames, ran to the side, exclaiming that it was hot. The bandits raised their weapons and ordered to grab him. The opponents fired at the beastmen, and they screamed. The protagonist thought that even after they used weapons to increase their combat power and gained experience to level up, they were still being pushed back. MC sternly asked, "Where is Rhea?" At the same time, she delivered a powerful kick to the bandit. Rhea slid along the ground. She exhaled heavily, looking at the enemies surrounding her. Rhea sternly wiped the sweat from her face with her hand. Jihoon clenched his teeth in anger and exclaimed that Rhea was also at her limit. Rhine flew past the protagonist. She hit a tree with force, and smoke enveloped the area. Rhine, with wounds on her face, lay on the ground. MC looked at her and thought that this is how they will lose. There is only one way out of this situation. Capture the bandit leader. MC noticed the bandit glaring at Brimlock. Jihoon called out to his comrade, and Brimlock looked tiredly at the protagonist. MC remembered the past. He asked if the comrade could awaken again. Brimlock agreed, and the protagonist noted that the transformation takes 3 minutes. This is the comrade's final transformation. Jihoon emerged from his memories and thought that Brimlock should hold out until he gave the signal. The bandit looked at his comrades and yelled, "What are they doing?" He ordered them to finish the beastman quickly. The bandits raised their daggers angrily at Brimlock. The protagonist called out to his comrade and ordered him to awake. Brimlock rose to his feet with fury and threw the bandits aside. The system window notified that this was an awakening skill. Size increases, defense and health points increased by 50%. MC quickly ran and called out to his comrade. He decisively raised his sword and thought they had 3 minutes to finish the boss. Brimlock ran holding a rope with a bandit tied to it, and the enemy begged for mercy. Scream Spike raised his fist, smiling. Brimlock raised his hand angrily and screamed. He gritted his teeth and threw the bandit toward Scream Spike. The boss ordered the fool to let go of the rope. Brimlock slammed his fist into the ground, and smoke rose up around him. Scream Spike grinned and clarified, "The enemy is so big, and there's no point, right?" The protagonist, holding a sword in his hand, leaped toward the boss. Scream Spike grinned maliciously and quickly turned to the side. He threw Brimlock toward MC. Jihoon looked ahead in bewilderment. Brimlock fell hard on the protagonist and smoke rose under his body. Scream Spike raised his foot to his face. He struck the enemy with tremendous force and Brimlock's head hit the ground, breaking it into pieces. The protagonist glared at the enemy. Scream Spike, smiling terrifyingly, quickly headed toward MC. At the same time, Rhea furiously raised her fist, holding the bandit by his clothes. Jihoon hit a rock and coughed in pain. Rhea tensely turned her head to the side and called out to the protagonist. MC looked vaguely at the enemy and thought that after checking everyone else's stats, he looked at his own. His battle strength is superior to Rhea's and Brimlock's. But against humans, the system window notifies that this is a passive skill. A physical monster surpasses human strength. MC thought this was his only hope. He filled his eyes with mana and, screaming, ran towards the enemy. The system window notifies that when attacking humans, all stats are increased by 200%. Jihoon thought that was all he had. The protagonist delivered a powerful punch to Scream Spike's chin. Rhea and Brimlock looked on in amazement. MC thought with fury that he heard his neck snap. Scream Spike landed calmly on the ground. He clarified what he had told the protagonist. Scream Spike, smiling terrifyingly, added that MC would never get 3 wins. Jihoon wondered what kind of curse this was. After a while, Scream Spike delivered a punch to the protagonist's chest. MC instantly fell to his knees. He coughed in pain and Scream Spike grinned. Jihoon thought with horror that he couldn't fall here. Screamspike grabbed his head with his hand and slammed it to the ground. The protagonist coughed, and Screamspike noted that it wouldn't work. He approached MC and ordered him to stay there. Screamspike asked Jihoon to let everyone listen. The Beastman stopped and called out to the village chief. Brimlock looked to the side and called out to Rhea. She ran quickly and ordered the enemy to get away from the protagonist. The bandit aimed a crossbow at Rhea. The arrow instantly pierced her leg. Rhea began to fall in horror, and the protagonist looked at her in fear. A cloud of smoke rose up and MC called out to Rhea. Screamspike looked at the sky and noticed that it was almost sunset, but it was still too late. He ordered everyone to listen. Screamspike declared that the war was over. He ordered his comrades to burn everything. Sticks engulfed in flames flew towards the village. They landed on houses and fields of food. The protagonist looked at this in horror and exclaimed that this cannot be. Flames engulfed the village. The beastmen screamed in fear and exclaimed that it was fire. They asked their comrades to run. We need to drop everything. The bandits joyfully shouted, "Let it all burn!" The beastman looked at the flames and noted that it was all over. Screamspike clarified that war isn't as simple as the protagonist thinks. The losing side loses everything. The bandit, smiling slyly, pulled the rope and asked the beastman to make a sound. A comrade, looking at the beastman tied with ropes, exclaimed that the enemy shouldn't play with his food. The bandits headed towards Brimlock. Screamspike said that the protagonist's family, friends, home, and even life were over. Rhea called out to MC in fear. Jihoon grabbed the enemy's arm with his hands, and Screamspike, smiling, clarified, "Won't the protagonist give up?" MC said that it was all over. He couldn't lose. He remembered the past. The protagonist's mother, holding Ruru in her arms, exclaimed that the cat was so beautiful that she had to bring her home. Now, how about her son becoming Ruru's friend? Jihoon came out of his memories and thought about returning to that moment. He was interrupted, and the system window announced that the monster's ultimate goal was the complete destruction of humanity. The protagonist shouted that until he achieved his own goal, he would never give up. The Beastman and Brimlock looked at the village chief in amazement. Screamspike arrogantly asked, "What will happen if MC doesn't give up? The protagonist's role is over." Jihoon looked at the weapon in fear. The bright moon sparkled in Rhea's eyes. She quickly ran past Screamspike. Blood gushed to the side and Screamspike fell into a stupor. Blood flowed from Rhea's hand. The protagonist thought that every other beastman could awaken simply by spending magic power. But Rhea couldn't awaken, even when she had enough magic power. Just think, even on the brink of death, she didn't use it. Was this a limitation on awakening Foxman? Rhea, shrouded in the moonlight, calmly raised her hand. The system window notifies that this skill is Foxman Awakening. True strength awakens in the moonlight. All stats increase by 100%. Rhea asked the protagonist for the next order. Screamspike lowered his head in rage and screamed that his hand hurt. MC ordered Rhea to kill all the bandits. She calmly agreed with him. Rhea instantly disappeared from the spot. Screamspike looked at Rhea in horror and screamed that she was a monster. How dare she touch his hand? Rhea approached the enemy with great speed and raised her hand with the intention of attacking. Screamspike's head flew off. Crane asked in amazement, "What is this?" Rhea landed on the ground in front of Crane. She calmly ordered him to be silent. The bandit fearfully said that this couldn't be and called out to the boss. He looked at his hand in bewilderment and clarified that his strength was depleting. The system window notified that the field effect had been removed. All stats had decreased by 25%. The bandit clenched his teeth in pain and screamed. Was the wound really that serious? Smoke rose into the dark sky. The protagonist looked at the system window. The system window notified that night was falling and the monsters were getting stronger. All stats had increased by 20%. Red energy enveloped the beastmen's bodies. The system window notified that all stats had increased by 20%. Brimlock raised his head in rage and screamed. Rhine confidently pointed her finger to the side and ordered everyone to attack. The beastmen angrily exclaimed that they were going to fight. They would kill all these people. The bandits tensed and noted that they couldn't win like this. The protagonist calmly said that was all. A drop of rain fell on his nose. A downpour came down from the sky. The beastmen shouted that the humans were escaping. We need to catch them. MC sadly lowered his head and thought that he had been careless in thinking that this was just an early mission. He had become overconfident because the plan was going well. The beastmen joyfully raised their hands and shouted that they had won. Jihoon thought that the first battle in this world ended like this. It ended. More than half of the village was burned, and many beastmen died. The protagonist gritted his teeth in anger and shouted that if only he had tried harder. Rhea clarified that he shouldn't take everything on himself. Everyone has different abilities. MC did the best he could with his skills. She smiled and asked the village chief to continue taking care of Warrior. Jihoon looked at her in amazement. Rhea's attitude towards the main character increased to 51. She ran shyly to the side and shouted that she would help with the cleaning then. The beastmen asked, "Is everything okay?" They would help too. The protagonist mentally thanked Rhea and thought that she had given him strength. It's not over yet. Everything has just begun. The system window notifies that this is the second main quest. You need to found a monster faction. The population of the monster faction is 82 people. The reward is a random skill acquired. Does the protagonist want to get it now? MC thought that now he would not repeat his past mistakes. The system window notifies that the weapon strengthening skill 1 has been learned. A few days later, the beastmen are rebuilding the village. The protagonist, sitting on the roof of the building, called out to Rhea. She, standing on the ground, raised her hand and exclaimed that she was here. Rizeldrake's tail covered Rhea's face. She happily invited MC to go eat. Jihoon, with Rizeldrake sitting on his head, clarified, "Really eat?" After a while, he looked sternly at the food and noticed that it was carrots again. Rhea, happily eating the carrots, clarified that the carrot field had been burned, but fortunately, the food supplies had survived. The protagonist, with an emaciated face, looked at the vegetable and noted that they only ate carrots. He inquired, "She's a carnivore, right?" Rhea, chewing her food, disagreed. MC sadly said that this was forced vegetarianism, but it was better than nothing. The beastman asked if her leg was okay. Rhea agreed and exclaimed that she could walk. The beastman said that he would help. The protagonist thought that the beastman's vitality and recovery were exceptional. Thanks to this, the settlement had quickly recovered, and 2 weeks had already passed since that brutal battle. During this time, they held funerals for the victims, and excluding those bandits who died or escaped, they sentenced 55 prisoners. Menacingly, everyone wanted immediate revenge for the dead, but taking the lives of unarmed creatures was never easy, and after long discussions, they released the opponents. Of course, not without conditions. There was a piece of paper hanging on the boat with the bandits. The paper said that this was the Screaming Scream Spike Gang, which couldn't be caught even in the kingdom. Jihoon thought he had heard that various monsters inhabited the sea. If the bandits were lucky, they would be able to avoid them and swim. That way, they would get to the kingdom and receive proper punishment. And there was one thing the protagonist learned later. The reason the bandits were looking for the fox's lair and the item their boss was looking for. MC found it by accident when he came to Rhea's house. She entered the building and noted that, fortunately, the place was intact. The protagonist used the observer's eye. He looked around, and the system window announced that these were power-up stones of different levels. MC thought it was a power-up stone. The system window announced it was a Tier B power-up stone. Jihoon screamed in amazement. Could it really be a Tier B power-up stone? Rhea asked. What are power-up stones? The protagonist, perplexed, asked why something so valuable was in her house. The bag fell hard to the floor. MC gasped in shock and, looking at the many stones, thought it was a whole bunch of power-up stones. He looked up and asked, "What's going on?" Jihoon screamed in amazement. "What is this?" He looked at several bags and wondered if they were all stones. This couldn't be true. After a while, open bags of power-up stones were lying on the floor. The protagonist exclaimed that this was very good. He excitedly asked how much it all cost. MC thought that he later learned that fox people love shiny things, and they believe that these items bring good luck, so they have a habit of hiding such things at home. The bandits probably knew this. Everyone said everything was fine, but Rhea continued to blame herself, and she tried to throw all the stones into the sea. The protagonist stopped her. He shouted that it wasn't Rhea's fault for collecting them. Whoever desired these stones is to blame. MC simply stated the obvious, but her attitude towards him went up to 60. Rhea bit her lip and began to cry. Jihoon clarified that he would keep an eye on these stones as they were dangerous. Rhea, wiping tears from her face, agreed. She asked to keep them safe. The protagonist thought this war had taught him something. They must become stronger, much stronger. After a while, MC asked where Rhea had put the bandits' weapons. Maybe in the warehouse? They entered the warehouse, and Rhea asked what they were doing there. Bags of stones appeared in the room. Jihoon said he would try his luck. He confidently brought the stone to his sword and used the weapon skill upgrade. Red light emanated from the warehouse windows. Rhea was amazed to see something flash, but only her shiny stone broke. The protagonist smiled and said everything had worked. Rhea screamed angrily. What happened? Did her stones break? MC thought the upgrade success rate for C-class items was 70%. The system window notifies that there is a 70% chance of successful enhancement. Crane's poison sword, attack +1. Jihoon thought this was just like the human faction. Furthermore, the success rate of enhancing B-class items is 55%. The system window notifies that this weapon is a Scream Spike with an attack of 130 and a magic attack of 230. The protagonist brought the stone to the weapon and thought that now he would seriously begin enhancing it. He used the weapon skill. At the same time, Ryan looked at the bright light emanating from the warehouse and clarified. Was that a flash? The protagonist enhanced weapons for the rest of the day. The next morning, the beastmen wondered if the village chief was still there. What were they doing? Maybe practicing magic? Rhea tiredly raised her hand to her face and yawned. She asked if the protagonist was still doing this. MC replied that he had ignited them 2,568 times. He was even ready to throw them into the sea. Rhea furiously grabbed him by the hair and screamed, "What do you mean he broke all her stones?" Jihoon screamed in pain and asked her to wait. The enhancement was successful after all. Rhea asked, "What is this?" The protagonist picked up the mana-shrouded weapon. The system window notified that the Scream Spike weapon had gained 10 points. Attack power had increased by 13. Magic power had increased by 23. MC shouted, 10 enhancements for 10 stones. Everything worked. Rhea asked in confusion, "What changed?" Jihoon happily raised his hand and asked her to look here. All weapons had increased attack power. The protagonist clarified that this was partly because lower-level items had a higher chance of successfully enhancing, but even the Brimlock weapon had reached 100 enhancements. The system window notified that the Brimlock hammer's attack power had increased by 177. Rhea said she didn't see a difference. The protagonist sneezed loudly. Rhea noted that although he had become a bit dusty, Brimlock clarified that the village chief was here. MC exclaimed that the comrade had come just in time. He pointed at the hammer and asked Brimlock to try it. The comrade gripped the weapon tightly. Brimlock fiercely raised the hammer and screamed. Jihoon asked if the comrade would use it. Brimlock, shaking, noted that it felt a little heavier, but fine. The protagonist thought the weapon looked heavy to handle. Although the hammer was a C-class hammer, it surpassed a B-class in pure attack power. The stat increase from upgrading the weapon seemed to be reflected in its weight. MC sadly lowered his head and noted that the upgrade had increased by 100, with 354 attacks. Rhea wondered why he looked happy first and then gloomy. Jihoon thought his weapon was an S-class Hellbringer. The system window notifies that Hellbringer's magical attack is 999. Additional characteristics are locked. A sword that brings destruction and chaos. This sword will one day bring hell. MC thought that 999 was a thing even without unlocking additional characteristics. He pulled out the best S-class weapon from the first wave. If the protagonist only had it, the bandits would have died. He sighed sadly and said that, in general, since he can't use magic, MC wouldn't have been able to use it anyway. But his Hellbringer, is everything okay with it? Meanwhile, in the kingdom, Aries' assistant said that the kingdom's reconstruction is almost complete. Why did they leave that hole? The knight replied that he heard something inside. The assistant turned her head to the side and noticed that ominous aura. A scream came from the huge hole in the ground. At the same time, in the hole, Aries grabbed the weapon with his hands and exclaimed that this should be enough. Mana enveloped Hellbringer. Aries looked at it in amazement. He stepped aside and asked, "What is this?" There was definitely something here. The priest remarked that this was surprising. Couldn't even Aries, who was giving it his all, cope? They can't leave a hole here. Aries looked tensely at the weapon. After some time, the system window notified that this was the main quest. You need to expand the monster faction. The protagonist must gather monsters in the surrounding area to expand the faction. 82 out of 1,000 monsters. The reward is a stone of random level. MC wondered, is it really so sudden? He thought the number 82 was the population of warrior, so he needs to recruit 1,000 participants. That's quite specific. The system window notifies that the party window is activated. A party can have up to 4 participants. Synergy effects are activated between party members. The experience gained by party members is distributed and divided based on their contribution. Jihoon thought the party system was similar to how they formed parties in Night Defense Adventure. It seemed familiar. It was obvious that there were 4 members. He resolutely raised his hand and shouted that they would take on these monsters. Brimlock replied that he wouldn't go. The protagonist stopped and asked why. Brimlock clarified that he thought it would be better for him to stay, protect warrior, and help here. MC thought that as soon as his comrade said that, he understood everything. The beastmen have become stronger, but if we take Rhea and Brimlock, their main fighters, into account, what if warrior is destroyed by enemies while they are gone? Unlike in games, in reality, there are many factors to consider. However, for synergy effects, it would be good to fill all 4 spots. The protagonist will leave Brimlock in the village. The beastman looked at the village chief, and Rhine pressed her lips tensely. MC was stunned and wondered who he should take.